So on the G drive, if I go to open on the Macs menu, I'm going to go to G, which is where all our program templates live. I go to SCB Macs, and I go to Templates. You'll see an SCB Exterior. We'll go ahead and click Open. And then you have this thing called a V-Ray plane initially that you see. And a couple different things is I've lost my viewport. Now the bottommost right panel will toggle the other viewports open and toggle them closed. So I would go ahead and leave them open for now. Right? And I can see in my top view, I have a plane, a camera, and sunlight. So all of these are linked and working harmoniously together, where if I move the sun down in the sky, and I hit Shift Q on the keyboard, it will adjust the color of the sky. If I move it up in the air, so it's really high in the sky, and I hit Shift Q on the keyboard, it'll render with a nice bright sky. So the daylighting system's now linked together. You know that the sunlight and the color of the sky is based on where it is in elevation. Okay? If I want to manipulate the camera view, right, so I'm just going to place a box somewhere in here so my camera's looking at it. There. And if I hit Shift Q on the keyboard, right, the color of my object still will matter at this point. Eventually we'll get into materials and it won't matter. Right, I'll sink it into my plane so it doesn't have this object happening. If I want to manipulate how I'm looking at this, so again, we look at the top, there's a camera view. I'm looking at the V-Ray physical camera. If I want to go to a perspective view, because we know once we have the camera set up and we want to do modeling operations, we want to work in a perspective. I can do P for perspective, T for top, F for front again, L for left. If I go back to the top view, let's say I want to zoom into this object. I just select it and hit Z on the keyboard and it'll zoom to that object. If I want to go back to my camera view, I hit C on the keyboard, it'll go back to my camera view. If I want to manipulate how I'm looking, also down at the bottom right where we did the viewport toggle, I can also then rotate in that view, and we can see on the top view that my camera is now rotating and my view is rotating. I can pan my camera. You can see what that's doing in the top view. I can dolly my camera in and dolly it out. I can change my field of view. That's usually done through the properties of the camera. Or I can go to the top view and manipulate the camera around by hand as well. All are good ways of doing it. If I hit P on the keyboard for perspective, and then I try and render my perspective view, it washes out the scene. And that's because I'm not looking through the camera anymore when I render. So whenever you render, you want to always make sure that you're looking through a camera view. I go back to C for camera, and then I get the nice high quality rendering. If I want to move the sun, right, so right now my lighting, right, we never do accurate lighting unless we're doing sun studies in 3ds Max. We usually fake the light completely, right? So maybe my lighting right now, this plane is in shadow. So the same way I moved my my camera, I would select my sun. Now the sun and camera are both targeted. So I have a target, and then I have the camera itself. So I'm going to select my sunlight, and I'm going to move it so that it looks this way. Now I don't see anything happening in the viewport. I know it's happening because I move the sun and I see my shadow. How I look at the lighting in the viewport, you can either do the default lighting toggle here, or under the how I'm looking at the object here, I can do lighting and shadows. And I can either illuminate with scene lights or illuminate with default lights. So in this case, I'm illuminating with scene lights. I'll do Shift Q. Right, and I can see that I see no shadow, but it looks kind of goofy. So the shadow always gives me a level of realism to the rendering, so I do want some shadow. There we go. If I want to, this plane here, if I hide it, so to hide objects, I'm going to select my plane, right-click it, and do Hide Selection. And I do Shift-Q on the keyboard. All of a sudden, I lose my horizon plane. So even though that V-Ray plane is a square, it's really going off into infinite space. If I hit Shift-Q on the keyboard, it will bring it back when I unhide it.